So we're continuing our meeting now that we have moved into the conference room. We were just finishing up a discussion of the debt impact calculations. I think we're done with that. Does anyone have any further comments on that? And I realize that if you would like to talk about it separately, I know, no. Okay.
So maybe do I understand that there's not, that maybe this will be shared with board members who have an interest, but my only comment would be, because property taxes are so complicated, I would be worried about distributing this in a wide way. And I'm not sure what it shows anyway. I mean, if the intent is to show that everyone's saving money through unification, I think that could be shown in other ways. But so few people pay based on their property and their income that it would be very hard to bring that factor in. So for its purposes of answering board members' questions, that's great from my perspective.
I mean, I don't have any plans to send it to the IDND or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think maybe I would make a suggestion that if the question comes up, we might say that there's a range, that some, it goes from like $55 to saving $66 to for a $2,000 house to an extra $55, or something, like to do something general that gives a range, or rather than giving specific numbers. Does that make sense or not?
I think it really depends on how the question. I think it depends on how the question came up.
Okay.
There's one specific board member who imagines being asked explicitly during their informational session, how much are my taxes going to go up in my town because of this debt?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that question will in fact come up, but I think in that scenario it would be hard to give a range.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were being asked that, I would probably give a number.
Yeah.
But I hope that that number would be given in the context of, and there's also, the savings more than compensate for anything else. And I liked Steve's comment as well about there also are assets that come along with that. And it's not really about that anyway.
Jen?
Yeah.
So the dissension that's going on in newspaper columns and other places specifically mention the minimal savings that we're getting. So how do we want to address that? And I've noticed people are having other people post for them on other town front porch forums. And there's one that has specific comments about minimal cost savings with the tax incentives. So
you're in. Hi. Sorry, I just got your message.
Katrina just left about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
When we didn't hear back from you, we just figured Katrina had it. Sorry.
I'm in hunter safety with my daughter, and the instructor is very clear about cell phone usage. So we just went on break, and I checked the message, and
you better get back to your daughter. Thank you.
You're welcome. All set? Getting out, locking up, and
we're
all
all
that
set.
stuff.
We got instructions. Thank
Sorry.
you. No, I'm sorry to have to bother you.
No worries.
Okay. We will focus.
We'll get there.
So it's an interesting question. Could we perhaps talk about that when we get to the communications subcommittee work?
okay, yep. I just think it needs to be addressed because the information that's out there is not what we have on our sheets.
So, right, I'm not sure exactly what communication you're referencing, although I have definitely seen some of those communications that you're alluding to, and I have seen that generally that the smallest amount of tax savings of all the tax savings that are out there are the ones that get cited. So I guess, to me, I think that comes up in maybe under the communications of, do we want to offer some sort of different communication about the range of the tax savings? Some over the summer, the Addison Independent did a very detailed article about the range of the tax savings, because I remember talking at length with Gayan about that. So we could perhaps discuss that either as a broader committee on the update on communications subcommittee work, or if there's not interest within this group, we could defer it to the communications subcommittee meeting that follows this as well. Can you remind me when we get to that topic? Okay, I'll make a note too. Anything further on the debt numbers? Okay, great. So we're going to go back to the beginning of the agenda. We already called to order. I'm not going to bother to review the agenda at this point, but there is an opportunity for public comment. Yes, do we have any public comment this evening?
I'm good,
You're
thank
good?
you.
Okay, thank you. We do also have agenda item number 3 to approve the meeting minutes from 8/29.
Move to approve.
Great, motion by Ed. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steve. Beat you to it.
Don't need to.
Any discussion? Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. So the minutes are approved. So we've already discussed the debt impact calculations, which was agenda item number 4. So we move to agenda item number 5, an update on the communications subcommittee work. There were a couple of files that were sent today. I apologize for the short notice, but sometimes it takes a while to get stuff together. Did everyone get the files that were sent today? Yeah.
Yes.
Andy, did you get?
I don't get extras.
Do you want me to forward? No. Do you want me to just throw them on the copier for you, assuming that I don't have to put a code in there?
I get, if you're gonna refer to them, it's be handy, but.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do that.
Here, Jen, why don't I do that, and then you can,
Well, but I
Keep
can't talk
going.
about my stuff without them.
you can take my stuff.
Getting too complicated for me.
If you reference.
Thank you. So maybe we'll just talk, we'll start by talking about the calendar. So one of the files that was sent was a calendar. It says the calendar that the communications subcommittee has been working from. So you can see that we've been attending numerous different types of events and different ways to try to get information out in the community, and some other folks on this committee have also been helping with those events. So thank you everyone who has been helping with those. At this point, there's not a whole lot more community events. We're getting close. Actually, I was in the car on the way here and they said, T-minus 3 weeks till the election. So of course, everyone's counting down for the presidential election. So it's amazing to think that it's only 3 weeks away.
Yes.
There are. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Amazing and exciting all at the same time. So basically, I just wanted people to be informed that those kinds of things are going on. Other things that are in the works is that there is a informational flyer that will be mailed out to households in the 5-town community. We are hoping. Do you want to give an update on that, or?
He called me, left a message tonight, this afternoon, and the easy part he's doing straight away. And the part that goes to Moncton apparently involves several different post offices for which he has to print individual mailing labels,
Yeah.
which he is doing.
Good.
And they will go out as soon as he gets the first batch, the bulk of them.
Excellent.
So it's underway.
And so the expectation is that those will be mailed next week, so that people receive them ahead of the informational meetings. So, which is great. We're hoping that will help to
Yeah,
raise some
the
interest.
28th is the deadline. He's gonna meet that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
And then he's gonna
apologize.
send you the bill.
I don't want the bill. I don't have any ANESU money, but no, that's fine. We'll figure out what to do with it. Yes, Ellen.
So, I have a suggestion, and I know, for a forum to talk, and that would be if it's nice weather, to go to the dump drop-off in Bristol. I am willing to do that if it's nice weather.
Do you guys have that every Saturday?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bring them this up, please.
Yeah. Do you want company, or are you happy to do it on your own?
I think company is good, but
Anyone else want to go to the dump on Saturday morning?
I'll actually go to the Moncton dump. How's that? I love going to the Moncton dump.
I don't remember.
Well, I don't, it's not the dump, it's the recycling center.
Sorry. I will use the correct lingo.
I can ask our board if somebody would go.
Yeah, and I know Michaela has gone to a few things. If she's gonna be healthy by the weekend, she might be possibly interested in it. I don't know. Sarah's like, no, thank you.
No.
Okay, so that would be targeted for this weekend?
I think so, but I need to double check before I say that.
Right. Well, see, in Moncton, we only have twice a month, so we have fewer opportunities to,
Ours is every Saturday.
I wonder what if the recycling center is a meeting place in either Lincoln or Starksboro.
Sure is in Lincoln.
And is that every second week like Moncton?
No,
Or
it's
it's
every-
every week?
You don't get to dump your trash out until every other week in Lincoln?
Second and fourth Saturday.
Technically, it's only the recycling center. Do they still have the guy
Oh,
though?
yeah,
No,
they take it.
PDS comes.
PDS.
But we try and keep our municipal expenses as low as we possibly
Try and
can.
keep our trash in our sheds longer.
Is anyone interested in looking into the Starksboro recycling center? When it is and what the social situation is? Steve, I see you writing. Are you volunteering to look into that?
I'll look into it, but these things are, the people you want at the recycling center really have to be local. There's
Right.
no sense having somebody there. It's not-
People
not
aren't
local.
going to talk to you if they don't know you, probably.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so if we go,
I'll ping some stuff with people.
I can make one of my kids make a sign saying why I'm there. Do you people just post them on their car, or I don't know. It's not really like sit out at I don't want to bring a table. I don't have a table to bring.
When I was, once upon a time, I was running for election, and I did bring a table, and I did bring my little flyers and stuff. And it's not a bad way to go.
So Starksboro is first and third Saturdays.
Yeah.
8 to noon, 8:30 to noon.
So they're 15th and, oh no. So this one, we got 5 this week, 5 this month.
So they'll be
Yeah, well-
the 6th of November,
Yeah.
Starksboro would, because that'll be the first Saturday.
5th. Isn't it? Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah,
5th.
this calendar
Oh,
goes Monday
sorry,
to
5th.
Sunday.
5th.
So Steve, I heard you offering to ping people and start.
I'll try and ping some stuff with you.
Okay.
When I went to the Tour de Farms at Bristol, they let me use the table, and I made up a sign, and I had the trifold.
So do you have extra I have like 10 trifolds.
Oh, there's lots.
These,
Yeah.
they're,
We made
There must
five.
be
Here.
something, yeah, there must be.
they're, well, yeah, I think they've gotten put out in various places, so
Okay.
I actually have a stack at my house. I was supposed to bring that.
They have a bunch here.
Okay,
I'm sure they have a bunch.
They have some here, yeah. I don't even know where they are, because I got some the other day, so.
okay.
I would volunteer for Lincoln, but I don't think I'll do a great job representing the
Thanks,
company's
Mike.
views.
Thanks for your frankness.
Okay, great. And, I think that any opportunities that you guys are seeing to share, information with people, from my experience, the people we've been talking to have been just really, it's not really front and center. And so, or if they have heard, they haven't heard a lot about it, so hearing a little bit more has been helpful. I feel like some of the conversations we had the other night were that way. People just sort of were like, hey, I haven't really heard much about this thing yet. So.
The Beaman open house, I think 1 in 5 had even heard of it. So they stopped and got information. We talked about it, but it was amazing how ignorant generally people are.
Yeah, I work
About
with
them.
people from Starksboro, and none of them have heard, none of them had heard of it.
And a lot of the folks that I've heard that have said they've heard of it have mentioned seeing things on Front Porch Forums. So
Mhm.
I think for some parts of the community, that is at least getting the idea out there that people are talking about it.
It is a 96% chance of rain this weekend on Saturday morning, so it seems
Yeah,
like
Saturday's not looking really good. I'll
this
just
would
say
not
that.
be a good Saturday to do it.
That's good to know because I really need to organize a closet. So maybe next Saturday or the
Yeah.
following Saturday, but okay.
Hopefully it'll be
Yep.
better, but
Okay.
I'll get this up ready.
Okay, great. And then Moncton will have another one for it.
Yeah.
So you're
No, we won't.
you're out of luck.
Yep.
You're either going in the rain or not going at all.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else on the calendar?
I have a quick question. I don't know if it has to do with the calendar or the next piece, but what is the hopes and dreams of our attendance at various meetings or various informational sessions?
Ooh, we're gonna come to that at
Okay,
the
great.
next topic.
I didn't know
but
if it
I'm
was
so glad you're already
calendar-y
thinking
or
about it.
not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to be good and follow my agenda that I wrote.
Great.
So I wrote it, so now I have to live with it.
Okay.
Just talking about the update on the communications subcommittee, I wanted to share, and it came out by email today. I called it an Act 46 legal update, and this, I'm going to share this, it's in the board packets for next week as well. There was some discussion at the all boards meeting last week, or last month, excuse me, about the, what people are and are not able to say in expressing their opinions about the unification. So we have been working with our attorney to understand the rules there, and so I tried to, there were lengthier emails, and I tried to capture the key points. But I do think that people are pretty confused about this. So just to cover it so that we're all on the same page here within this room anyhow. So the committee is responsible for informing voters about the work of the committee and what the committee is recommending. It should be informational, what's being provided by the committee. So any sort of district or taxpayer funds can't be used to advocate for voting in a particular way, i.e. no vote yes signs paid for by the committee or by ANESU. Board members and committee members are welcome to speak as individuals. Everybody has a First Amendment right to free speech. So as an individual, you can say pretty much whatever you want. That's not what it says in the thing. What I wrote exactly what the lawyer, the attorney said. But so basically you can express your personal opinions. It's important that those are personal opinions, not implying broader opinions than they are. Public funds should not be used to disseminate personal opinions. It is allowable for a board or committee member to say that they are going to vote in a particular way and encourage others to do the same. That is something that has explicitly come up because some of the information being posted by the minority is explicitly advocating for people to vote no. And so that was a question because I had always understood that that was not something that was allowed, but it is apparently, according to our attorney, so we now are clear on that. Individuals are also welcome to spend their own money on items that advocate for voting in a particular way. So that means if you personally want to go buy some lawn signs that say vote yes, you are welcome to do so, or banners or whatever, t-shirts.
But
You as an individual can individually do that. There are financial limits, so if anyone starts thinking big, check with an attorney. There's finance laws, campaign finance laws and such, or whatever that applies to that. But I think probably for the scope of what people are thinking, that is something that could be done, if people be inclined to do so. If you do happen to purchase a t-shirt, for example, saying vote yes, you shouldn't wear it to your committee meeting, or if you go represent the committee at the recycling center, shouldn't be advocating in a particular way when you're acting in official capacity. On the weekend at your soccer game or whatever is a whole nother story. Going shopping, whatever. These are all questions that have come up. Lastly, there were questions that came up about the rights and opportunities for ANESU employees. So similarly, employees can advocate and can make personal statements about their opinions related to the unification. And that was part of a longer interpretation from the attorney as well. I don't know what, if anything, might be happening in that regard, but there was a question anyhow. Yes, Elin?
So letters to the editor encouraging a vote a specific way are covered under this if one is writing them as an individual.
Yes.
Okay.
So you should not identify that you are a member of the ACT 46 study committee in them. You should just identify that you live in New Haven.
No,
I
don't
think
that's a
I think
problem.
you can identify that you are a member of the committee.
Okay.
I think that it can't be that you are speaking on behalf of the committee.
Okay.
You are speaking as yourself, who
Okay.
happens to be a member of the committee.
Okay. Just being clear.
I have been on the side of being very cautious about making sure that we're being very respectful of what is acceptable. And other folks are not doing that so much, so it's raised a lot more questions about, where those lines really are. So it seems that the information we're getting from our attorney is that it is acceptable for a person to identify themselves as a committee member and then to personally advocate for a particular vote outcome.
Okay.
So the last paragraph is my paragraph that I added. It's not from the attorney. I think generally in the school board community, we tend to defer to the chair to communicate the positions of the board. And so I know that members of this committee have expressed interest in writing letters to the editor, and I'm not particularly inclined to say don't do that. I would encourage you to, if you feel inclined to do it, to refer to some of the key things that we are already officially saying as a committee. Basically, we don't want to confuse the community by having lots of people appearing to speak on behalf of the committee and making different kinds of arguments. But I think that everybody has a right to make a personal statement of their opinion. And the water bottle agrees, it concurs. Does anyone have any questions about that? Dawn, I'm waiting. Was waiting to see if you were going to weigh in, because I know we've been through a lot from a school board perspective on how we communicate, and this is perhaps a little bit different.
Right. It's different than what the VSBA has said, but the VSBA always defers to legal counsel.
So what has the VSBA said?
They've talked about it, some of the stuff that we discussed at the last meeting, that a committee of the board has an obligation to speak of the decision that's made, and so I've been in touch with them several times through the course, because I've been getting inquiries about, wait, how come this is happening, and from board members, and so they encouraged me to still have that conversation at the board table so that board members can work through it kind of at the table. And
It's on our agenda.
right, it is a worthwhile conversation for board members, because it's the basis for the trust and the work you do at the table. So, and this is different than we've acted in the past, so it's just gonna take some time for people to work through it and sort of settle with it, so.
Yeah, I mean, partly I wonder if it feels a bit different because, while a school board does bring something for a public vote, and we do have a public vote on a budget, I guess I believe that budgets are less divisive perhaps, or less it's just a different kind of a question.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that your community will approve a budget every year because that's what happens. It might not be the first budget that's, you know, like, that it's not really a question of, are we going to make a big change, or we're going to have a budget and the budget is going to have some amount of spending in it. It's like it feels different. And
But I think the part where it's the problem is at the board table, when you have people agreeing to, you know, the time to have a disagreement or have that work done right at the table, and okay, I don't agree with what you say, or oh, I like what you said, yeah, that might be a great idea, I might change my thinking because I heard something that convinced me another way. That all happens at the table, and then you, after you come to a decision, it's done. You don't keep rehashing it and, you know, or going after somebody because they didn't vote your way. That's where it ends, kind of thing. And so I think that that's the part that makes people like, wait a minute, we were all working together, kind of thing, and I don't understand now. People are just struggling with that. So, you know, and it could happen on a budget issue. I mean,
yeah.
you know, the years ago there was a board member who wouldn't sign the warning because they didn't agree with the terms of the budget, and it's like, after all that work, we did all this work and we couldn't be together for that part. I don't know.
I know I don't have an answer. I agree. I mean, I think that part of the process is working through those issues together as a group, and when the group decides something in the way that group has chosen to make decisions, that needs to carry some weight. I think that unfortunately, or I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use any sort of modifier, what we're hearing from our attorney is that people are still able to express their opinions, whether or not those opinions are in agreement with the decisions that were made by the process that the group agreed to follow. I mean, I think that we could imagine things from a board perspective that would be incredibly difficult if folks did that. I mean, I think specifically of negotiations, and I personally haven't served on the negotiations committee, but you know, it would be incredibly difficult if board members came out after a negotiation and said, well, I didn't think this was a good deal. Right. You know, it would be hard to imagine how that body could have any credibility going forward after such a thing.
Right. And I would say that, you know, in what we've been through in the last couple of years, just coming together as one, and, you know, yeah, everybody's not going to agree on everything. I get that, but just being one, we're better when we all have our you know, having a piece of it. We're all better. I mean, I just can't think of if we had gone through what we've gone through in the last couple of years, and somebody who had a different opinion was out spreading that while we were trying to work through and get to a better place. So I just, that as a board member at a board table and experiencing what I have experienced in the last couple of years, that was my, well, I understand what you're saying to people when they were coming to me, and that's why it ended up on a, you know, as part of the discussion, because people are trying to wrestle with it themselves.
Well, I definitely am happy to see the conversations continue. What I was trying to do with this communication is to express the information that we've gotten from the attorney, partly in response to the types of communications that have been posted by the authors of the Minority Report that have been explicitly advocating for a specific type of vote, a no vote, and so there were some questions about that. And then I have also been getting questions from members of this committee as well as from board members about what they can do as individuals. And so, you know, I definitely have heard from people who are thinking about writing letters to the editor. Typically we don't have board members. I mean, as a board member, I have never written a letter to the editor because we have communications go through the chair. So I'm a little conflicted. I feel like what we're hearing is that people have the option to do that, and I think some people are very frustrated, feeling like that they're only one side of the issue is getting a lot of press, where the other side, you know, sort of the positive side, is not necessarily getting as much information or coverage in the media. And at the same time, you know, I think we want to be careful that we don't want to have a ton of different messages going on in the community about this unification. So
Right. I think your you know, giving everybody that presentation so that people, when they're talking about it, are all using the same words is important, because it can get confusing to people if one person sort of, well, it's sorta, and ad libs on to something that can be, so it's helpful that, and board members will get the slide presentation as well, is that correct?
yes, so we can talk about the slides next. And we've been trying to do that, I think, a lot with our flyer that we have. It's so nice there was one sitting here so I can like hold it up. But that this has a bunch of the frequently asked questions. I assume everyone's seen it by now, but if you haven't, on here.
Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah.
But it has some of the frequently asked questions, and that was part of the goal with that as well, is that this is sort of some of the key points that we're talking about, as well as the frequently asked questions that Steve has been kind of building out from this, that have been going into the weekly or periodic Front Porch Forum posts.
Yeah.
So,
But, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I don't need to rehash this. But I do need to say that I have a very different perspective on this dynamic. You all know it. I don't need to we don't need to rehash it further here.
Yes, Allison.
So I think part of the problem is that the dissenters are walking a very thin, murky line when they claim that they're members of the committee, the Act 46 Study Committee, but then they go on to be perceived as an individual when they say they are not voting, they are voting no for the proposal. So where is the line? Because they've said they're a member of the study committee, which gives their statement some weight, but then they step back from being a member of the study committee to make their personal opinion known. And that doesn't seem, that's very gray and murky.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty straight up. I mean, that is the way it is. I mean, the op-ed that I've, you know, sort of worked on and haven't submitted yet runs the same gamut, you know? And what you're saying is, I've been part of this process for the past, since May? I don't remember.
October 2015.
Oh, my Lord.
Yes.
May? Where have you been?
October 25th.
Oh, goodness. But I've been part of this process, and because of this process, I certainly have some views that have been formed by that. That being said, you know, here are my personal opinions. I mean, I may not like it any more than you do, but it certainly, I think, is and I may feel that we as a committee are, and let me put it a different way. When we say stuff as a committee, we say it as a committee, right? And that's done through our chair, right? That's the deal. I mean, I've sort of gotten special dispensation on those frequently asked questions. Those are signed from the ANESU Act 46 Study Committee.
Because there was a motion that
That's right,
granted you,
absolutely.
right, that authorized you to do that.
Yep. But yeah, I don't have to be happy about it. I don't think it doesn't seem that great to me. I mean, yeah.
Alan?
Go ahead, Eva.
It's funny, what seems grayer to me is these informational sessions that are not Act 46 committee. They are, so the Bristol's is the Bristol School Boards. And so we are speaking as the Bristol School Board, we are not speaking as the ACT 46 Committee. And while some of us overlap, I don't know, that I have to think about that much more than the letter, where I'm me personally. I can see saying that, but.
Sarah?
Yeah, I think actually my only, hearing this or seeing what it says, this is what we're allowed to do. My frustration has come from the fact that I feel like I've only seen the no stuff at least in the paper. And so I think we need more of a presence in the paper and not I think that the other parts are fine, but I think that's where it gets like, am I allowed to? And this says yes. But I would probably have someone else read it first.
Yeah.
And I'm certain that you could find someone on this committee that would be happy to do that for you.
Yes.
So the communications subcommittee also is working on some things that we expect to be in the paper.
Right.
Obviously, as we get closer to the election, there's more and more
Right.
news. So it's not totally guaranteed to be in the paper, but I expected to see some of it starting last week. So I'm very hopeful that we will see some starting this week, and I will personally follow up with Patrick just to make sure that things are going along. The other thing it was a few weeks ago now, but Gayan did an interview with Patrick that was in the paper like right after the state board, and it was now a little while ago, but it was a very, I thought he did a really nice job representing a lot of the benefits that he sees as personally as the superintendent, a lot of the benefits that he sees of that unification.
Yeah.
Burlington settled.
That's
Yeah.
what she just said.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Burlington
She
settled.
That's
The
great.
teachers.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Mike?
So in the interest of transparency, I did submit something to the paper which hasn't appeared yet. And I'd love to read one very short paragraph, 2 sentences. It's right on topic here. I served on the ACT 46 study committee over the last year. I worked hard, maybe it's 3 sentences. I worked hard to influence the direction of the committee. I have a great respect for every member of the committee and believe they are promoting what they believe is best for our schools. I have come to believe that the proposal to consolidate our schools into will do more harm than good. So I say that out loud because, not because you don't know it, but I think I'm more concerned about this tradition, because I don't think it's a policy. The policy, once I actually read it, says that one can't question the authority of the committee to make a decision or seek to speak for the committee, which makes total sense to me. But this tradition of feeling that members of the committee can't speak is, I think, more concerning to me than the unification.
So
Yeah, I don't want to.
I think it's an interesting question. I think that this is our last meeting as this committee. I don't know that there's a lot to be accomplished on that topic. I think it's something that's going to continue to be addressed by the school boards and through the all boards forum. So
That makes sense.
we've noted your comments, and I think it has certainly some of the things that have transpired over the last few months have raised a lot of questions and a lot of interest in having discussion on that from many people. And
In response to your question, how the boards can now take up the mantle, we're an organ of the boards, and they were given an opportunity individually to endorse what we've done, recommended, and they can take it from there. I believe that works.
so we're going to come to talking about the informational meetings. I just want to check, does anyone have any further discussion on the
I just
Yeah.
want to say one last thing for myself. So part of my struggle, since we decided to present unification to the Agency of Education and the State Board of Education, and then our voters, to recommend unification, I have been struggling with trying to be very respectful of the board members' code of conduct that we have, where when a decision is made, you don't speak against it. You've hashed it all out on the table, but now you've come together as one body, and this is your decision, and this is how you're gonna go forward. So that's where I've been coming from, and I've been very respectful of that, and I've not been putting things out there as myself personally, but knowing now that we can say we're a member of the study committee, but I'm allowed to speak as an individual, I feel much better about that. I don't feel like, I'm not in conflict with that gray area anymore. I thought it was very black and white, and it was very frustrating to see how some individuals were just running rampant with not speaking with one voice. And now I feel better. And I feel like I can, and other people who may have been feeling the same frustration, and like Sarah said, the communication has been one-sided. There hasn't been a lot of communication coming out from the study committee saying, well, that specific point is countered by this, and countered by that, and countered by this. That hasn't been out there, and I know a lot of people feel very frustrated about that. So now that everyone is allowed to speak as an individual with the information and the facts as they stand, makes me feel better. And I'm not gonna run out there and constantly, I'm not gonna throw an op-ed in every single edition of the Addison Independent, and I'm not gonna post on every single night of the Front Porch Forum on Bristol, and I'm not gonna ask individuals in each one of those towns, other towns, to post on my behalf, because I've seen that happening, to make sure that that message is out there very loudly. So I feel better now. I wish we had had this clarity way sooner, much sooner, so that we could have had possibly a more organized process. But the past is the past, and we're all very busy with all of our own things. And now we can go forward with very clear guidance from council about what we can and cannot do. So I appreciate your hard work on that, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. So I understand, and I can feel, I personally feel very frustrated when I read some of the things that are being said that I feel are not based in facts. We also have generally, as a board community, have made a point of not getting into arguments and not, I think that that while we are, from our attorney, we understand that I could personally go and dispute those points, that may not be in the best interest of how this committee wants to be communicating. I do think that we have had a strategy, and we could have probably had more communications in that strategy. Whether or not that would have been helpful, I don't know. I'm really hopeful that some of the things that we had intentionally planned to time more closely to the election will be very beneficial. I think that having something in everyone's mailbox that is based on facts would be a beneficial thing. And I'm excited about some of the things that we expect to see in the newspaper in the coming weeks. And I think that the Front Porch Forum postings, while yes, some people have concerns, people post back to them, it's still getting information, it's getting people talking about, it's getting it out there that it's going on. And I think it's an interesting balance, trying to figure out how to get positive information that reflects the recommendation of the committee to the public, and also making sure that we are communicating in a way that is coherent and that is informative and helpful to the public discussion. We may have further conversation of that during our subcommittee meeting. Allison, you had specifically asked that we talk about the tax savings question. Do people want to talk about that now, or shall we defer that to the communications subcommittee? So kind of putting some making sure that there is accurate information in the community about the expected tax savings.
I'm fine with deferring it to the subcommittee, communication subcommittee.
Okay, just don't want anyone to feel left out. Of course, anyone can stay, but, yeah, Ellen.
I am uncomfortable with the calling that a tax, the 8% discount, calling that a tax savings. And I don't think there's a way around it. Like, I haven't found a clear way to call it, but understanding that the purpose of it was to balance out the taxes for those who were taking a hit when we melded everything. I just have to say that because I probably have before.
I think that in written, we have tried to refer to it as a tax incentive. I have heard that same thing that you said, that it was meant to balance out any shifts. But the fact is that it, even if that's what they intended, it's not what it's doing. Something that would balance shifts would average rates. It wouldn't reduce everyone's rates. You know,
Right, but nobody's
in,
negative because of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So in effect, if you look at the tax projections, every single taxpayer, and I think we could say, even though we didn't project for paying based on income because of the complexity of doing that, that even people who pay based on income, that every single taxpayer in the Addison Northeast will save money on their property taxes based on unification. I mean, that's what all the projections show. Even if you want to argue that the lowest valued house in the lowest savings town is only this much, it's still, there is still a savings that is seen in for every taxpayer. And so I understand where you're coming from, and I don't know how to explain that in a way that is not, you know, sort of a paragraph.
Yep.
When you're
No.
telling people
Yeah.
that it. Allison.
So what I've been saying is property tax rate reduction incentive, because that's what it is. There's no easy soundbite that comes out of that. It's not tax savings because when you start from it. So I've just been calling it property tax rate reduction incentives because I'm talking about the property tax. I'm not talking about the income tax.
Right.
And it's a tax rate reduction incentive.
But that's only part of it because this last column that we have is everything. Is the 140,000
Right.
plus the
Yep.
incentive.
Right, I think we have broadly called that, when we put in a bullet, financial savings and tax incentives.
Okay.
So it's sort of like the different ways we're gonna save money. I mean, because it also rolls in things like keeping your small schools grant, which is, I guess, a financial incentive, right?
It's a huge
So
thing
there
for
are
some schools.
there are financial incentives, there are financial
Oh, yeah.
savings, there are tax incentives, and there's penalties too, right? So it's all in the mix. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. As usual, we're running behind. It wouldn't be an Act 46 committee meeting if we were actually on time.
How long were we in the hallway? We get a credit.
We get a credit for not having a quorum and being on the floor in the hallway. All right, so planning for the informational meetings. So what I put in the agenda is the 5 meetings have been scheduled. You may have noticed that 3 of the 5 are on the same day. We did not require that the meetings all be scheduled on different days because, I mean, there's only 10 days and 4 of those are weekends. So, you know, like, it really was pretty likely that some would get scheduled on the same days. So we have 3 meetings on Tuesday, the 1st, Bristol, followed by Lincoln, followed by Starksboro. I think Bristol was hoping their meeting was only gonna be an hour, so that perhaps you could get to 2 of those. And then Wednesday, New Haven, and then Thursday, Moncton. So it is my hope that we will have representation, and maybe I shouldn't even say hope. It is my expectation that we will have representation from this committee at every single informational meeting. Certainly, we have board members from every community who are on this committee, so they will be there, but it would be beneficial to have other folks as well. I know the administration is also planning to have strong representation at the informational meetings, should there be questions that come up that would be better addressed by the administration. So we are planning on that. I would ask you guys, and I'll send send it by email to the folks who aren't here tonight, to check your calendars and let me know if there are one or more meetings you might be interested or be willing to put your name on attending. It would be best if we didn't have the entire committee at one meeting and nobody at another one, so sign up for the potluck and let me know where you're going. So that part's clear, right? If you guys feel like I know already and you want to tell me at the end of the meeting, that's fine too. Otherwise, send me an email so that we know who's going to be where. I guess I could do a doodle poll, but that just seems way too organized.
Yeah.
This will be fine. The other thing about the informational meetings, so Elin, you brought this up before. Technically and officially, those are meetings that are held by the individual school boards to provide information about the the recommendation in the Act 46 report. So what I have put in my update to all the school boards for next week is that the Act 46 committee will have representation at every one of those meetings, that we will be available to provide a short presentation at the beginning of the meeting and to help with answering questions that come up. I think we'll probably see a variety of different experiences for different school boards and how engaged they've been in the process. So there may be some school boards that feel fairly comfortable answering questions. And obviously, some of us are already school board members on those boards that we'll be hosting. But, you know, I expect, for example, in Moncton, like some of the other school board members will probably be able to answer many of the questions that come up. Whereas in other communities, some of the school board members really maybe have not been as engaged. So I wanted to make the offer that we would be able to do that. Sarah and Ed.
Where do we sit? It's a random question, but where do we sit at that meeting? Or
Well, I
It's
don't know how
logistical, but
you
I
guys
don't
do
know
it
how it
in New
works.
Haven, but my guess is in Moncton, if there were committee members who were not part of the Moncton board, they would probably sit like in the front row of the audience.
Okay.
That's normally like with the principal, for example, at our annual budget meeting, usually sits in the front row of the audience and then can stand and address people if she wants, or sort of turn. But
Thank you.
that would be my guess,
Okay.
but I don't know if other communities structure theirs differently. I think Ed was waiting and yeah.
I was thinking that the 5 slides that have been put together is as good a way to start as any, and just use the technology it takes to project it.
Well, and that's
It's
why
what-
I shared those
It's what Patrick
slides.
used in front of the faculty.
Right, the Bristol Elementary faculty.
No,
About 8,
about eight.
about 8, actually, that's right.
Right, so the slides that I sent out today, it took some of those slides, and it took some of the slides that we've used in other presentations, and it cut out a whole bunch of the slides, basically, because my thought is, especially if we're shooting for an hour, you never know how many questions you'll have, but really that we should be thinking about 10, 15 minutes, like we're not doing a 45-minute presentation. It really needs to be short, just hitting the key points. And so that's where I was trying to go with those short slides. But I'm glad that you were,
Yeah,
thought they
the
were.
one that Patrick used that was important has to do with the benefits and the positives and negatives. It was the
Yeah.
last slide.
Oh, you like the last one?
That was, I think, specific to teachers though.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. All right, so hold on, sorry, Elin, we've been waiting.
Oh, so actually that really helped me, that question. Because, so if I think of it as the school board has invited somebody to come and speak,
You see this?
to present something,
Yeah, that's the
when
one.
special ed comes to speak, they sit at the table with us.
Okay.
So when we invite someone to speak, they come and sit at our table. So if we're inviting the Act 46 committee to come and present for us, and they're a section of it, and we open and close it as the Bristol board, we open and close it, and the middle part is the Act 46, that makes perfect sense to me. And then that middle part is their presentation, they can answer questions, or we can answer questions when we're both. And then we have the either side of it.
Does anyone else have a perspective on how that might go?
Well,
Sarah?
I mean, it's different if it's also in your town, so I kind of feel like if I'm at the New Haven one, that I would really like to be sitting at the table because I've been told that by another member of the New Haven school board. Right? But then if I'm attending Bristol's, I'm happy to sit in the front row. I don't know, it's a weird protocol, but I've never done it, so I'm just asking.
Yeah. Right.
My comment is that board's call. I mean, it's their
Right,
meeting,
I agree.
so they get to decide. And then I have a question.
Yeah. You saw
I notice, so I don't see on here where these meetings are taking place. So I'm curious about
Oh.
that. And just to announce, Lincoln's is at Burnham Hall, if you didn't know that. And so I just wonder whether the other ones are at the schools.
New Haven is the town hall.
Holly Hall.
New Haven Town Hall, Holly Hall.
Oh, they're all at the town
Vernon,
halls, okay.
Moncton
All the
Central
agendas are
School.
posted
Right.
now,
It's on those
because they're
agendas.
all officially
Okay.
warned.
Yeah, Moncton's gonna be at the elementary
Moncton's
school.
gonna be at the school, because that's where
Yeah.
we normally do ours.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think Starksborough's is in their multipurpose room,
Right.
actually. For some reason
That's
I
what's
saw it.
posted.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's good to know.
So I guess, I think it's an interesting question then about, to me, whether it's that the Bristol board is giving the Act 46 committee part of their agenda, or whether the Bristol board is spending part of their agenda talking about Act 46. Is sort of what I was waiting to see if anyone brought up. And I don't know, I mean, I think that it's on, the agendas all came out for next week's meeting, and I believe that there will be discussion of that, so it's, you know, I worded my update to say that we would be available to provide a presentation. I personally think it would be great if the Bristol members of the Act 46 committee wanted to use the slides and do the presentation. But if not, you know, we could get someone else to do it, right? But to me, like, to the extent that a board feels comfortable being the one speaking about the unification proposal, I think that that is probably the better approach with the Act 46 folks from other towns, you know, and I don't know, you know, I think, Sarah, it's a good point, your representatives from your own town maybe sit with you, but, you know, if you have 4 or 5 people there, do we have a big table of 10 people up at the front, or are we just sort of there as supporting if something comes up? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone have any thoughts about that?
I was just gonna say, be flexible with how the evening goes.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way of telling how each community really is going to, you know, who all shows up and what kinds of questions are going to be asked. You can estimate and guess, but just being in the moment and flexible is probably the best thing to do. And whatever feels right at that point in time.
Yeah.
I can just tell you that from the bond, when we did the bond, the Rev Up Mount Abe committee, we all sat, it was a fairly substantial group, and we all sat at the front and just took turns answering whatever questions we felt like we could. You know, we had the people on the committee with us, basically.
Okay. So what I'm noting to myself is that maybe what I can do is ahead of next week's board meetings, I can send a few questions to the board chairs, like, please let us know, 1, is the board going to present the Act 46 update, or do you want the committee, someone from the committee who's not a local board member to do it? Right? And, you know, do you have any thoughts about how you'd like people to physically be at your meeting? And so sort of trying to get the boards to give us some input about that. Does that seem like, as a chair of one of the local boards, would that be helpful to have those questions or to think about? And
It would, and then just to know who's, like, if there's one other person coming to Bristol, it sort of makes sense to me that the 3 of us are together up there.
right.
It's also just to see, because the 5 towns are really close, so it could be very likely that you know somebody else on the committee better than you know me, or somebody knows Allison or me. So I kind of like it, but if it's a lot of people, then that's not gonna work on the stage.
Well, and I know also that the administration is planning to have representation. I don't know, you know, I haven't gotten a list of who's going where, but I think it is quite possible that there would be more than one administrative person at each session, to the extent that that's reasonable. You know, principals, for example, various staff from this office, and so, you know, I think it's just wanting to respect that we didn't want to overwhelm the board. Here's our posse who came to run your board meeting. Yeah, and it's good to understand what those expectations are. So I am making myself a note to send that out. And so if you sign up to go to a session that's not one that you're already on the board for, I will communicate to you what I hear about what to expect. Obviously, if you're already on a board, I'm looking at Ed, if you're already on the New Haven board, you don't need me to tell you that you're gonna get to sit at the table.
Brad's holding her feet to the fire to be there, or else.
Good.
Am I clear in the fact that these these board meetings, their primary purpose is just to do this? They're not taking action on other things
No.
at these board meetings?
Information meeting.
Okay.
It's a public information meeting. I think Karen did put public comment on the agendas.
Yep.
So there's like call to order, public comment, information and questions or something like that.
And are members from the Mount Abe board present with the New Haven board, the representatives there?
So I mean, I don't think that they would be required. They're
Okay.
not members of that local board, but
Okay.
certainly each town could advocate with their Mount Abe board members to
attend, you could invite them.
invite them.
Yeah.
Great, this is all really
Yes.
helpful discussion. Any other comments on the slides? Yes, no, more or less?
Are people talking during the slides? Is there a script?
So I think there will be some bullet points, some talking points that I could put together. Yeah.
So and that person who is presenting that is most likely an Act 46 committee member, and I'm assuming it's a
necessarily.
communications
Can
member?
be the chair.
The chair?
Sure. We've kept them informed, at least in our case. I mean, he
Okay.
can speak to it. He's
Okay.
written pieces about it and for it, so I think
Who's-
denying Brad the opportunity would be foolish.
Right, I mean, I guess the way that I see it is, and so all these questions are good questions that I can put to the board chairs to try to get some more of a sense of how different boards feel about it. You know, I think, to me, they are meetings of that board to provide information about this recommendation. Right? And so, as the study committee, our job is to be there to support. So if they the board doesn't feel comfortable doing the presentation themselves, that we could do that, but I think it would be desirable for it not to be the Act 46 committee people from these other towns are here to
Yeah,
tell
you
us
know
what they think we should do, right? And it's, people wanna hear from their own boards to the extent that they can. I think, anyway. Yeah.
Could I suggest, I know we've mentioned it briefly, but the Mount Abe board members, could you request that each of the board chairs invite their town Mount Abe board members to join them at the meeting, if they're able to? Some of them may have made other plans for that particular night. But I think it would be really, really good to have the Mount Abe board members up there as well, if they can make it, for each individual town that they represent.
There is an Act 46 update, I'm assuming,
At the all boards?
at the all boards meeting. So would it make sense to just touch on some of these things quickly then?
If they let me talk, I can definitely talk to the large group about that briefly. I did provide a written update, but it didn't, had to send it in today, so won't have these questions in it. It's already been
They're out
issued.
already, yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you guys for all the input. So no other comments on the slides? We're happy with them? They look okay?
There's one line that's covering up some words on key points of our
Yeah,
proposal.
the key
but
points is, you're gonna.
I know it's.
I think it's probably it's thing
I
here.
wasn't sure if it was because I was looking at it in a PDF.
Yeah, me too.
We can blame it on that, but we'll
Okay.
make sure that it doesn't look like that.
Cool. Thank you.
And you guys know this is funny, but this, like, at the state board, people loved this, like Allison's beginning inquiries for like, can I have a copy of that? This slide is gonna start appearing in lots of proposals. I think people found it as a very visual way to understand where we are and what we're trying to improve. I was, we get 3 or 4 inquiries right afterwards, right, from people who were like, we want to use your site. And I had to give her all the credit, which is great. Okay, so I think that's what we needed to cover then for the informational meetings. Did I miss anything that I should have covered? No?
Move to adjourn?
Hold on, we gotta do other business first. Is there any other business? Oh, I'm sorry, I should probably give one other update. It'll be a quick one though, about our candidates for the board. I don't know if everybody has heard that we have with the exception of Bristol, we have a full slate of candidates for the new unified board. I understand Bristol actually only has 2. I thought they had 3 candidates. They had a third person take out a petition, but the petition was not turned in on time. So there's only 2 candidates in Bristol. So if you know anyone who wants to run a write-in campaign in Bristol, it's probably a high level of likelihood. No,
So I talked to Nicole Mace about this, and she was pretty sure that it was fairly clear that it's Bristol that appoints
The board.
the board in this situation.
Yeah.
But in the future, she said it's not so clear whether it would be the board itself or whether it would be the select board, or we looked at the wording on it. So I'm supposed to remind her, and she's gonna get back to me about how that would work.
Okay, we also did get some information from Steve Stitzel about that, a different community that ended up not needing to have that information had inquired about what, you know, what would happen if there were seats that were,
But in
not-
5 years,
not
if
right.
it happens, it's gonna
Right.
be a different thing, because there will be no Bristol
Right.
board. So,
I guess I had assumed, because today, if there's a vacancy on the Moncton board, there is a vacancy on the Moncton board right now, the Moncton school board will, you know, recruit, ask for people to send in letters of interest, and then the Moncton school board will appoint someone until the next election. So I had assumed that the new unified board would appoint someone, but I would expect that they would have to be from the town that the vacant seats are from,
Okay.
but I don't know, I'm not an attorney, so.
right, so well,
maybe
the
attorneys will tell
person
us
being
later.
appointed would definitely have to be,
Right.
but would the people choosing on have to be?
I think you discovered that it's a select board. It's a town, becomes a town position,
Yeah.
so it's a select board that would do
I agree.
It used to be that the select board appointed if there was a vacancy.
Oh,
But
really?
then that changed, because there was a vacancy early on in Moncton, and the select board appointed somebody with information from the
Sure.
school board. They did take, but then it changed to the school board themselves could
So-
interview and
Yeah.
pick candidates.
And in fact, if you look at those petitions are petitions to the town clerk, not the school board.
Right, the
Current, yeah.
petitions are.
So it's a
Interesting.
town position that's being appointed,
My
not
dad
a school board.
just got voted onto the Addison Central one by the board,
Yeah.
the new board.
So I guess everyone's still working it out.
Yeah,
but-
so it's still up for grabs.
They
I-
didn't ask, they just did it.
There was a vote though.
Just do it.
You know, I have learned so much about election law.
Yeah.
Way more than I have ever in my life wanted to know. And I still only know this much.
Right.
We got a very long email today from the Agency of Ed about certifying the vote and all the things that go into that. So that's a whole nother
Mm.
thing that we'll get to learn about.
Has anybody voted early and seen it?
Yeah, I voted.
Yeah, the samples are there.
Mhm.
Are-
So they're
yeah,
getting
on the-
this, and then there was
And
and then this is what your people look like. Great.
Notice the typo.
Wow. I'm not, where am I starting?
Vote for note
Note.
more than
No,
one.
more than-
Yikes. Now you're
I
gonna
didn't
make me
prepare
go-
the ballots.
That's right, now you're gonna make me go look at what our.
He's going right now.
From central office.
They were probably prepared
In the same
in
way.
bulk, so.
It's a- it's a
One other
substantial
update,
ballot.
so I do wanna tell you, as we're talking about the slate of candidates, that we actually have a contended election in Moncton for the seat I'm running for. Mary Kate and I are running against each other. So, only one of us will be on the new board. We'll see, but that's part of the promise of a
Right you are.
One of you
unified
could
board, fewer
move to-
seats.
one of you could move to Bristol.
I'll be an honorary Bristol
No, you have to
president,
move.
so, yeah.
So,
So-
one point, I don't know if this is other business or just part of the normal conversation, I think whether or not you're supportive of this thing or not, I think this is a really daunting task.
It is.
To be handed when you walk into a ballot booth if you haven't been tracking it.
Yep.
And so I certainly put it in my communication, please take the time to sit down and read it beforehand, because if it gets handed to you when you're walking into the, and I honestly don't know how that plays for people who find themselves in that situation, whether more of them say, oh, I don't trust it, I'll vote yes, or more of them say, I'm not gonna read this whole thing, I'm voting no.
Yep.
I don't know.
And you understand why we did what we did. I mean, it's clear. We wanted to be very clear that this is what you're voting on.
Yeah.
We could have just done the lazy way, if you will, that other votes of this type have been, just a straight yes, no.
But it's also that it's only by it being here that it has to be voted on.
That it has weight.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
Right, so.
So are you saying that other communities have not had a lengthy ballot? Because it was my understanding
10.
that, I mean,
Well, they
the
did.
advice we got from our attorney was that is how, like, the part that was sort of unique to us was putting it all in an article.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that other communities haven't had a ballot like that, they just haven't had an article that states everything that's in the
I don't
ballot.
think I had a ballot that looks like that. Shouldn't it sound? No what?
We can probably find it.
Hmm.
I'll
Well,
just
anyhow.
recognize-
It's out there, it's
It is what it
not
is.
changeable at this point.
It is what it is.
And I'll just say that I want to recognize that I made a mistake in my column, because I was told that it was 3 pages, and so I said 3 pages of complicated text. It's 2 pages of complicated text with the 3 pages. I called and asked them to change that. They said, I don't know if I can, it might be already out.
Okay, great. Anything else under other business? Okay, motion to adjourn? Ed, seconded by Elon? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed?
No.
Didn't even vote, okay. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.